The Ica stones are ancient carved stones that were found in Peru. They are noteworthy in that they depict scenes of humans interacting with dinosaurs. According to evolutionists, dinosaurs would have died out 65 million years before these stones were even carved, so there should be no way that an ancient civilization could have any knowledge of dinosaurs. This is absolute proof that the evolutionary version of events simply can't be true. To get to the bottom of this one, I just had to investigate. The Ica Valley in Peru has a long history of pre-Columbian culture going back several thousand years. Being separated from other regions by a long coastal desert, most of this history is characterized by people who were distinct from the dominant Incan culture. Since the Spanish conquest in the 1500s, the area has been thoroughly explored and, as of the 1800s, excavated. Although these excavations did not discover any carved stones, as tourism in the area began to increase in the early 20th century, locals began to sell carved stones on the roadsides as souvenirs. In 1966, amateur collector Santiago Calvo had organized a search of the cemeteries in the Tomo sector Cayango district and discovered a legitimate carved stone. It was an uneven, flat stone with a design that might be compared to a petaled flower, or a palm tree, or perhaps an abstract design. This was then followed by excavations by Alejandro Pezzia Assereto, which recovered stones depicting a fish and a llama as well as others. He published his findings in 1968. At about the same time, Peruvian physician Javier Cabrera d'Arqueología began collecting carved stones from the same area and adding them to a collection started by his father. He came across a stone with a fish carving that he believed to be an extinct species. From there, he began purchasing stones from Carlos and Pablo Soldi. After purchasing more than 300 stones from the Soldi brothers, he purchased at least 11,000 more from a local farmer named Basilio Uschuya. Cabrera then decided to abandon his medical career and open a museum. The notable characteristic about some of the stones, however, is that many of them depict dinosaurs and humans interacting. The scenarios on the stones show that ancient Peruvians used dinosaurs as beasts of burden. Included are depictions of ancient Peruvians riding flying reptiles. How could an ancient culture have created these depictions of creatures that were supposedly extinct 65 million years before humans supposedly evolved? The first obvious answer to that question is that these creatures didn't become extinct millions of years ago and, in fact, did interact with human beings. The second obvious answer to this question is that these depictions of humans and dinosaurs are actually modern forgeries. To address the first answer, it is important to remember that dinosaurs surviving into the modern day would offer no contradiction to evolutionary theory whatsoever. Evolution makes no predictions regarding extinction at all, save to acknowledge that it happens and has an effect on surviving species. Falsifying the idea that dinosaurs are still alive is impossible, as we can never know for sure that there isn't at least one hiding somewhere. Since the claim of their survival is unfalsifiable and has no bearing on the validity of evolution anyway, I'll move on to answer 2. For his 1973 book, Gold of the Gods, Eric Van Daniken interviewed Basilio Uschuya. In this interview, Uschuya admitted to having forged the stones with another farmer named Irma Gutierrez de Aparcana. He claimed to have gotten the images from comic books, textbooks, and magazines. So that's it. Argument over. They're forgeries, right? Well, not so fast. Later, in an interview with German journalist Andreas Fischer, Uschuya recanted his admission of forgery, claiming that, under Peruvian law, he would have been imprisoned for selling genuine artifacts. In January 1975, Uschuya and Aparcana again admitted to having forged the stones, but in the Peruvian newspaper Mundial. In 1978, Uschuya demonstrated his technique for creating the stones in the PBS-BBC documentary, The Case of the Ancient Astronauts. He manufactured an Ica stone in one day, on camera, by etching the stone with a knife and then cooking it in a horn filled with manure and shoe polish to replicate the outer patina. Uschuya told the producers that burning stones is easier than working the land. In 1996, Aparcana showed how she made the stones. This method was very similar to that employed by Uschuya. So it seems that for Uschuya and Aparcana, admitting a hoax is as convoluted as committing a hoax. Examining the stones themselves is the only way to uncover whether there is a hoax anyway. Just looking at pictures of the stone depicting dinosaurs, there is something that immediately sticks out. Modern science has discovered that theropod dinosaurs like T-Rex inclined forward, balancing on two legs like modern birds. Before that, it was assumed that theropods stood erect like humans. This posture would result in their tails being dragged behind them. This is how they were depicted in popular media until the mid-80s, and this is how they're depicted on the stones. So the question here should be, how did ancient cultures not only know about extinct animals, but know how they would be misrepresented by future cultures? However, as creationists are quick to point out, not all of the stones are forgeries. Some of them are indeed genuine. Examining the few that we know to be genuine, we see an obvious difference when compared to the stones depicting dinosaurs. In genuine stones, the coloring on the engravings is nearly identical to the coloring of the untouched stone. Enough time has passed that a significant patina has covered the engravings. The Institute of Geological Sciences of London examined a stone lent by Javier Cabrera and concluded that it was a fake. The microscopic study showed no oxidation patina covered the engravings. The engravings were also far too sharp and too light for the assumed age of thousands of years. The funny part about this is that Cabrera, the person promoting the stones, has a vastly different explanation for the stones. He claimed in his 2000 book, The Message of the Engraved Stones of Ica, that they are evidence that humanity is actually 405 million years old. Additionally, writers like Daniken use the stones as evidence of ancient astronauts visiting Earth. So these stones neither prove nor disprove anything, as they are obviously evidence for anything. The problem with creationists citing the Ica stones in their arguments is that there is just nothing to go on. No dependable sources claiming their authenticity, incorrect depictions showing erroneous mid-20th century understanding of morphology, no genuine patinas, and no conclusions to be drawn from them even if they are genuine. It's just nothing being presented as an argument, once again having no bearing on the validity of evolution. But then again, sometimes recognizing nothing for what it is an important part of science. In making an argument, it's important to make sure that it's defensible, of course, but it is also important to make sure it's relevant. An unnerving example of how creationism taught me real science.
Learn more about the real science behind other creationist arguments by watching other episodes. If there's a creationist argument you think I should investigate, please comment below. It may be the subject of a later video. In the meantime, subscribe and make sure you don't miss it.